Hi everybody, it's Quinn from FabriKated Quilts, and we are ready to share some awesome designs that are created with the Westalee Persian Turrets Collection. So I'm going to grab my sample, my paper, and let's see if we can give you a little better view here. There we go. A little more top down. Hi everybody, if you're out there, go ahead and say hello. Let me know who you are, where you're from. So this is the title of the collection that we're using today, this Persian turret. And the basic shape is kind of this unique onion top, I'm gonna call it. So we see these a lot of times architecturally in like Russia maybe, and sort of the Far East Asian area of the world. And such a unique shape, and it's got some really fun things that we can do with that. So the first thing I want to start out with is we're going to show you just the basic use right away. This particular one, if you can see, there's two sizes on each of these, and it's got a lot of great reference lines that we can use. So this one right here is the 1x1, which means that the height is 1 inch and the width from side to side is 1 inch. So that's the little one. And then on this side, this one is 3 inches wide, so 3 inch across the bottom, and 3 inch from the top to the base. So that's really important, and you'll see why. And I have done some marking to show sizes, so that'll make a little bit more sense as we go. And you always want to keep track of those numbers. So we'll point out how things match up today as we go so that you can see why those numbers are so important. So in this template grouping, there are 4 different templates. I'll stick these up here real quick, just so you can see all of them. And each of them has 2 sizes, like that. And so I've just got, some random markings, but you can kind of ignore a lot of extraneous marking that we have on here. We'll just show you what we need to show you. So let me go ahead and put these up here. And let me get to our space with our 9 inch width right here. Okay, so because this is 3, I know absolutely that this will fit. Let me adjust so that you guys can see better. We need to come down a little. There we go. Oh, thank you for your patience. I don't know why I'm having such camera challenges right now, huh? Okay, so I know that this design will fit in here because this is 9 inches long. And what I'm going to do is just show you the basic markings. I'll turn it this way because I think you'll be able to see the markings just a little bit better. And I'll also talk about how I put my grips on. So when I'm holding it, I'm going to hold down at the bottom and probably at the top, either on this side or on this side. So what I've done is I've put the grips in a way that there's sort of 2 on each side. And then this one kind of doubles over here for the top. And then this one's really small, so these are kind of at the base. Now, right on this template, let me lift it up for you. Okay, let's show you right here. So the foot obviously sits right there, which means that this line right here is your needle alignment right there on both sides. And, we have other references because we could maybe move the design up if we wanted to, but always important to understand that this is where the needle is going to align, right? And then at the top, you'll have the 1/4 inch space, and the foot will sink up in there and the needle should line up. Now on here, this line right here coming down, this is your 3 inch width right there, because this is going to show you where that needle is going to line up on this direction on both sides right there. So the foot will sink into here, but the needle will line up. And I'll show you that right now as we start with this design. So let's put our needle right in the corner. Let me see if I can. I have a little bit of a big fabric piece today, so you guys will see me manipulating and moving around fabric, which hopefully will help you when you're doing your own projects. Always get your bobbin thread up. And the first design, like I said, is basic use, and this use would be essentially the same except for the size differences with any of the templates. So the line that we talked about that's in line with the foot is this line right here. So the needle and this line that comes up is lined up. So right there, I'm right on the very edge of my seam or my boundary. And then over here on this first line, that's where the needle is going to line up over here. So I would line up this top reference line in order to line this up on the bottom of this space. Okay? And just somebody once commented while I was sewing that I didn't have any batting. I always have batting, always. I don't normally quilt without batting because what is the point, right? But just in case anybody was wondering, and I do a lot of times use basting spray, but I'm out. So you'll see today it's going to be a little bit of a wonky ride. Okay, so my foot's here. Make sure you're tucked all the way into the foot because in these little hooks, sometimes you could be off and then you'd get a weird jog at the beginning. So here, we're just going to start sewing. When you get to that top, take that extra stitch to tack that bobbin thread. And you'll see we lined up right on this top reference line, the very top one right there. Okay, so to keep this design going, I can literally just move over and I'll line up my lines and I would be able to just keep sewing. These are going to connect right next to each other, real easy. Now, the width of this shape is 3 inches. From the top to the bottom, it's 3 inches tall and 3 inches side to side. And that's just because of the template that I chose. You know, if I had a different one, I would have different measurements. So I'm going to change my hands, get a little bit more pressure closer to the template. Okay, and then we'll scoot over, same thing. And looks like maybe my measurement's not quite exactly right. I don't know if you can see. Let's see if we can show you. See right here that I'm a little bit off on my line? So what I'll do is maybe I'll do my little smush technique. We'll give it a little tug and we'll get it lined up so that we can line up right there. Notice that this plastic edge is in line with that line, that reference line. That's not true for every one of them, but that is true for this one. So you may want to check that. If it isn't true, it'll have a different mark on there that will line up. But on this one, it's the edge of the plastic also. Okay, now when I get to the bottom, before I do anything else, before I let go, I'm going to stitch up to the top. And I'm going to show you why in just a second. Okay, so this is what we have so far. We have these really pretty shapes. And notice that this shape right here is exactly the same but opposite of this one. So if we wanted to do this as an edge-to-edge design, we already have everything we need. We don't hardly need any markings at all. So let's go ahead. We'll close this one out right here. Get this line. And we'll come back. So that's the boundary, right? Okay, and I'm right back where I started. Now I'm going to just scoot over and I'm going to shift a little bit so I can show you the alignment that we're looking for. So notice on this one that I've got some reference lines with this edge right there. So I can line up the edge of the plastic right in the middle right there. So let me just make a little chalk mark so you can see what I'm trying to do. So I'm going to just sort of, let me see if I can line it up square. Okay, right there is the center, of course, of this. And if I put this on, my edge of my plastic right here should line up with that. And if it does, that's how I know that I'm going to be right in the center of that space right there, is if this edge lines up. So that's this direction. And then this direction, remember that the top line here is the center reference for that. So I would be looking at those two things and sort of checking. So right there, I should be able to bring my foot into that space and make the needle match. And if you ever had any concerns that it wouldn't, this is a good time for you to try with your spacing gauge. You can literally put your spacing gauge right on there. In fact, mine is right here, and I'll show you what I mean. You can literally just set that right there, and then you'll know, yes, I will come into that spot, or no, I won't. So we'll just start sewing. All right, we did good. We actually hit it right on the money. So who knows what's next? It's a test. It's a quiz. Do you know what we're going to do next? If you do, go ahead and put it in there, because I'm watching you. I'm looking at you now. So hi Colleen Francis, and hi Sandy Gallivan. Thank you so much for joining us today. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start going. So I'm going to line up again right here, and I can use the same reference information. This center line, make sure your foot is all the way in the space. And then if you needed to check it, you can always check that. We haven't done a lot of quilting here, so we don't have a lot of draw on the quilt yet. But if we did, we could always do that double check, and that'll help us get right in and make sure the design is clean. Let's check. Oh, perfect. We're right there. Okay, so let's get lined up for the next one. The same thing. So I'm checking, making sure I'm aligned right here on this centerpiece. And I can always do a little smush if I need to. My quilt's heavier, can you tell? Thank God I have my glider on. Ha. Okay, so now on this one, we've got to close out this last space right here, and that's going to bring us up here, which is where we need to finish this next top section. So when we close this part, we're not sewing back here. We're going to stop up here. Okay, so we don't have as many lines, but let me tell you what line we do have. This center mark right there is the line that we're going to use to get us lined up right here with this. So if I need to, I'll just do a little smush, make sure I'm tucked into the foot, and I'll sew right up to the top. Okay, now let's show you what we have before we move on. Let's give you a chance to look at it. We do have a lot of waviness in our quilt sandwich today. So it was a little off right there, but if you look, it looks great on these other spaces right here. Look how pretty that is. And we can just keep stacking up on here by connecting to these and fill up whatever space we wanted to. So this is an amazing way to do that edge-to-edge design. So right here, I'd be looking to get that same alignment. So this is that center line right there. And then this top line right here, we want to make sure is lined up. So maybe from this angle, you'll be able to see that alignment a little bit better when we put our spacing gauge right there. So tuck everybody in. I'll hold this. So we want that center line lined up right there. So we should be able to stitch right into there. Perfect. We're right at the top. And then we'll get lined up again. Now this one's a little bit bigger. I don't know if you can see that. So here's my spacing gauge right there, and there's actually a little gap. So let me show you how we can adjust that so that we can fix it if that happens to you. So go ahead and we'll sew up to the top. first. Okay, we know that we want to touch right there. So I can just pivot this ever so slightly, just a tiny bit. I can make sure that my 1/4 inch is going to bring me right into the tip of that point, if that happens to you, because it can draw up. And so we're actually right at the tip right there. So that's a fudging that you can do to make this intersection a little bit cleaner. And that happens all the time. We find that maybe the quilt is drawing a little bit more one way or another. And so, you know, if that happens, then we have an ability to fix that. So we'll check this one as well. That one's a lot closer, but it still might need a slight adjustment. So what I'll do is I want to take maybe 2 stitches up since we adjusted up here. That'll help keep that side a little bit cleaner. Oh, that was perfect. We got right in there. We're right at the tip there. Now here's the alignment mark right here for this side. And you can see that the very edge right there should be touching. So we can give a little tug, get that lined up. And we'll check our spacing gauge right there as well. Make sure that we have a good fit. So I think we're good. Okay, so let me show you real quick. We'll come out just a little bit so you can see the space for everything. See if you can see the whole design. Isn't that pretty? Now that makes a great edge-to-edge design. And it is pretty easy to fudge. It's pretty easy to line everything up. So I'm going to tack it off and I'm going to show you a fun fill that you can use with the Persian tiles and show you how you can make that continuous and fill it all in without a lot of extra starts and stops. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll close that out. So tacking, lift up your needle and your foot. Okay, there's our bobbin thread. And we can just cut all of that off. Okay, now in order to make the rest of this design continuous, we have to go a different way. So if you were going to do this design on your quilt as an edge to edge, I recommend doing this whole thing with whatever size that you're doing, and then the fill you're going to do afterwards, because the way that the fill is going to work, we sewed from the bottom to the top, right? And now we're going to sew like this and like this to fill these in, and then we would come back this way and then skip and fill one side and cross over like that. So this is a different pattern. So I would do all of this whole part of the quilt first, and then you'll be doing this fill afterwards. So let me show you what the fill is going to consist of. So this size, this is the one that we just did. This is 3 by 3. So what we want to do is we want to find one that is the same height, but one that is skinnier right here. So this is the first fill that we're going to show you. So this is 3 by 3. So I'm going to try to find my 3 by 2. And I have different ones. This one is 3 by 1 right there. This opening 3 by 1.5. But I think I want the fatter one. Oh, let's see. Maybe that's the right one.
2 by 2 and 1.5 and 1.5.
Oh, I guess we're going to use this one. I guess there is no 3 by 2. I thought there was, but this is the 3, and this is the skinnier 3-inch tall, but skinnier at the base. Okay. Thank you, honey. Okay. So this is the same height right here as this one, right? And it's going to end in the middle just like this one did, even though we don't have a reference line, which you could always put a reference line if you wanted to. But what we're trying to show you is how to make it easier, less marking, less manipulation. So we'll go ahead and we'll put our needle right in the same spot where we have this point at the top. So I'm getting him right in position. Maybe we'll tack a few stitches to make sure that he's going to stay. And we'll set the foot right in there. Now, I'm going to look and make sure that I essentially have the same amount of space on each side. And if I had that reference line, I would definitely use it, but I don't think that we need it. But you want to look right here and right here. So I can tell if it's centered well. So let me kind of show you what I'm looking at right here. So right here is the stitch line, and there's a certain amount of space right there. I want to make sure that the space on this side is the same. You know, and you can use either. You can manipulate either one of those, but try to make sure that what you see on both sides is the same. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll stitch down. Okay, and this causes a lot of twisty-turny, right? So we've got this center line and this center line. So can you see? This should line up right in the middle. And this one should line up right at the intersection, so that'll bring you right in. I'll put the spacing gauge just so you can see what I'm looking for. I want to come right into the middle of the design at 1/4 inch like that. And this center line right here lines up through the middle. So I want both of those if I can have those. Okay, and now I can just rotate that. And I'm going to come down to the bottom, and I have a line, a reference line here at the bottom. So I won't sew past it, even if it would let me. Like if the quilt's drawing up, I'll just stop when I get down to the line, right? So right there is the bottom, that's the border. So I'm going to sew across the border, and I'm about 1/4 inch away, maybe a little bit bigger. And I want to see where am I going to put this right here as I come in. So I won't sew all the way to there. I need to leave the same gap. So here's the gap right there. So I want to sew until I'm the same distance away on this side. Okay, so let's show you. Now I can use the straight edge right here if I need to. That's my 1/4 inch right there. That'll help me sew nice and straight across the bottom. And about that much space, right, to get back. So again, you can use the same center lines that you used before. So let me see if we can turn this so you can get a better view. Always trying to give you the best view, but it is a little tricky sometimes. All right, so we need this line and this center line to line right up in the middle so that we get right where we need to. Right into the center. You can always take another stitch because there's extra stitching right there if you need to kind of get seated right in the center. Then you'll flip it and you're going to line up everything right here in the middle as well. So again, still looking here and here to make sure that you have the same reference lines on both sides. That'll help you to get everybody even. I think we need one more stitch to come down. There we go. Okay, and then we can come back up right to there, and we're pretty much right on the line right there. We're right centered and everything. All right, and then let me show you what that looks like. Isn't that fun? So I would be able to do those all in a really long line. Right here, you would do this entire line all the way down to the bottom. And then you would sew across whatever your boundary, and your boundary could be the edge of your quilt. You know, it could be out in the batting, and then you would line up. Now, this is 6 inches, right? Because this is 3 and 3. So if you wanted to mark at 3-inch increments, you could totally do that. That would give you some markings. If you had a 1.5-inch grid, that would also give you a lot of great markings to keep everything lined up so that things don't get wonky. But know that it is going to draw up. You know, the more that you quilt, the more it's going to draw up. And so just like we went across, what I thought would look really good is filling one and then skipping this one and then coming and filling this one. So I liked that this had like an open section, but you could fill both of them if you wanted to. So on my sample, let's see where it is. Oh, darn it. I don't think it shows it as well. But I would cross over to here and I would connect, and then I would continue putting this same fill in here. And this is nice if you want to do temply, then you could cut either this section or you could cut the bigger sections. It's up to you. But that gives that little bit of split, and it also decreases the amount of quilting space that's open. So this is really big right here, whereas this is a little bit smaller, offering you a little bit of an opportunity to put some more quilting in there to fill in that space. And you could also put free motion fills in there really easily if you wanted to. Okay, so let's tack this off. There we go. So I'm just going to comment on what just happened. So I tried to pull up my bobbin thread and it was resisting. It didn't want to go. And I turned my flywheel just slightly towards the front, towards me, like this way. And that released my bobbin thread. So if your bobbin thread, you know, is ever getting stuck and you think that it should come up, just try that. Just try turning your hand wheel a little bit and release it. Sometimes it just gets hooked on your bobbin case. So let's go ahead. We're going to move to another space right here. So I'm just going to give a little tug on this wonky batting. There we go. Make sure it's all smooth. The space on this is set up for a 2-inch. And what I want to show you is how we can create a really unique border, or we can change the design. So let's go ahead. We'll start here in the middle. And we're going to use our 2-inch this time, just so we can have some variety. All right, let's find it. 2 by 2. All right, so let's go ahead and we're going to use the same initial alignment. So we'll just go across. Okay, and then we'll just keep moving. So you'll see this is pretty easy, and the alignment, the foot will just get right up into the tip. The alignment on the base is really easy. You can just keep everybody lined up. It's no problem. Here, make sure that you tuck this all the way down. If for some reason your foot isn't in the hook right there, what will happen is you might get a little tiny overlap right there. So you always want to make sure that you come in and have the foot all the way seated on the template as much as possible, because you could have it maybe up a little bit higher than you think. So kind of make sure it's all the way in there. Notice I'm right on my center line here, which is awesome. So the quilt hasn't really drawn up very much there yet. Okay. And we'll just go all the way across. Now I could do the bottom after this, but I'm going to do a little top detail, and then we'll maybe do the bottom if we want to. We'll play with it. Okay, so let me show you. We're going to do a little bit of marking here to prepare this for the next piece. Okay, really pretty shape. Let's come out just a little bit so you can see. Gorgeous, gorgeous. This is Okay, so Dolly, I'm going to answer your question. So on any given template, the cutouts are different sizes. They're not the same for each of the ones that are on it. So I'll show you this one. So the one I just sewed, this is 2 by 2. And then on this one, this is 1.5 by 1.5. So this one is quite a bit smaller. You're going to get 2 sizes for each template. And they have a number, like this is Persian Turret number 2. There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. Now I could echo with this, right? But it's not going to give me much in the way of an echo. If I want a really big echo, that's what we're going to show you next. And I'm going to make a few reference lines to help us. So let's get our chalk out. And did you see there's my little overlap that I was talking about? If you're not all the way into your foot, you'll get this little overlap right there. Ah, it's fine. I don't care. All right, so I'm going to line this up on my line right there. Get everybody lined up. And we'll just make a little reference line. And these are 2-inch increments, of course. You know, all of these designs are at 2-inch increments. So if you had a 2-inch grid, this would be great to do with the 2-inch grid. All right, so I'm just marking them. I've only got 1 or 2 more. So if you were doing this, this is more something that I would do maybe in the border, not something I would necessarily want to do for the entire quilt. Although you could if you wanted to. All right, so we're marked. So I'm going to travel up the edge and I'm going to get a bigger template. So I'm going to use that big one that we started with. And I'm going to show you how you can line it up and use this as an amazing echo on here. Because they have the different sizes, you get so much opportunity to play with the different designs. So what I want here is I want to center that in the middle there. And I can choose whatever spacing I want. And right up here, I've got a reference line that I can use. So whatever line I pick, I just want to make sure I stay with the same line. So what I'll do here is I'm just going to mark a mark on there. So you'll know which one I'm using. And this is about 1 inch, so it should give me 3/4. So if I wanted a 1 inch, I would move up like that. So you could choose up here what you want. So I think we'll use this and we'll do a 3/4 inch spacing right there. And I'll just put a little reference mark on there so I'm reminded that that's the line that I'm using. Okay, so obviously here we're not touching at all, so we need to just sew up. So you can freehand it if you want to, or you can use your straight edge. It's okay, you decide. We're touching, and now we'll sew in, and we'll come down to the marked line. Okay, the marked line is the split between these 2 designs, so I don't want to cross over. This is how I know. If I just wanted to do a 1/4 inch echo, then I could stop when the foot is touching here. But we wanted something a little bit bigger. So we'll line it up, get it right in the center, and we'll line it up on the line that I wanted. And you could see that there's reference lines right here that give me that 2-inch space. So you can see all across the top, there's some additional reference lines there. So we'll go ahead. And again, if the lines require a little manipulation or smushing, sew to the top and then adjust for this line. So like if I needed to adjust the fabric here, I could pull it or I could push it so that I come down right on the line. And that way we'll get a nice even transition right on this chalk mark right there. All right, we're touching and we're on the line. All right, same thing, getting us lined up again. And I've got this center line here. This was the actual center of the block, so I can tell like if I was wonky. So you may want to put some periodic reference lines in. Those will help you make sure that you stay on task, on target. Get your lines all lined up nice. Uh-oh. I missed one. I put him in the wrong spot. Let's see. I think we need maybe a couple more stitches. We're going to have to fudge this one. We'll see. Let's see what happens. Oh, maybe a few more. Here, I'll just fudge it, right? There we go. I did it. You can do that too. It's okay. Right there. Getting myself aligned. So this one looks like he's a little wonkier. So I'm going to get up to the top and then I'll make the adjustment. We need to, let's see, maybe we'll take one extra stitch because he's way off center. So what I'm looking for is, this is the center, so I can see that he's a little bit that way. So maybe I will just lift him up just slightly so I can kind of get further out. And then on this one, we'll just tip this a little bit so that he'll still get in right at the same space where he needs to. All right, and then that's the last one, and we'll get lined up. And so you see our correction is pretty good. We're kind of right in the center there, which is nice. So we were able to make that correction. So let me show you what we have. It's so cute. I love it. Isn't that pretty? So here's what we have. Now this one is a little bit bigger, and you can see we have a really pretty echo. Could I just move up and put this one right above it? I can also. I could put the 2-inch and I could just stack my 2 inches with a space as well. And that's what the lines are for that are on the template itself. That's why you have these lines. So here I was actually doing an echo, but I could just put this exact 2-inch line above this by just aligning these lines a certain amount. I could, you know, if I lined it up like this, then that's going to be 1 inch above, because that's 3 lines right there. So these lines are really useful if you just want to make this kind of chevron stack and just keep them going. You can just move up the side of your quilt and then align everything and go across and then come back and do another one. And you'll get this beautiful kind of a chevron look right there, which I think is very, very cool. So let's move down here. And we're going to show you something else. All right, so this is the 2-inch right here, which means that this space from the base to base is 2 inches. So one of the cool things that we have with our templates is we have different sizes. So let me show you. Let's see if we can pick the right one. What we're looking for is 2-inch base and a little bit shorter. Are we missing one? Did I set it down? Oh, there it is. Okay. Thank you. Alrighty. So let's see what we got. I got to flip it over. All right. So I think we'll do the 1 inch by 2, if I can find it. 1 by 1. Well, I guess we'll do this one. All right, so I'm going to sew in a little bit. This is kind of that same thing. If I want to make one that'll go in the middle here, even if it's not the same height, I will have to scoot in a little bit to do it. So we've got, so let's see, we'll use this one. So notice that I'm not quite on the line, so I'll scoot over just a little bit until I can get lined up. I'm looking for this center line, and I've got the same relationship here on the base. So this one is a shorter base and a shorter size as well. And then you can just use your straight edge and we'll sew over. The size difference between these two, this is a 2-inch base, and the one that we're using is a 1.5. So it's going to be a 1/4 inch difference I need to sew in until the foot is touching in order to fit this in. So let me show you that real quick. Okay, so maybe I went in just a little bit far. So we're looking right here at the foot. So that'll bring us a 1/4 inch on each side, which should center that design that we're working with right now. Okay, so we'll get it lined up. Oh, he does not like that. He wants to be over a little further. There we go. So there's our center line right there. And we're lined up on this line, on that center chalk line. And that should help us get our little spot right in the middle there. And then you can just lift this guy up, and there's your 1/4 inch space right there. Sew across a little bit and check your spacing. You can always come over one more stitch if you need to get lined up. So there's that center line there. Ooh, we need to get you up a little higher. There we go. Okay. Let's tip it so you can see the alignment. So right there's your center line, and he's lined right in the center of this 2-inch one. And then we're using this reference line. That's right in line with where the needle will be when it sews out. Okay, and then you can just put this up. There's your 1/4 inch spacer right there. Just sew across. And check your spacing by putting the template on. I can see maybe I need one more stitch right there. And there we go, I'm perfect. You can see that this one would go a little bit faster, I think, because you're able to, not really have to manipulate too much. Just lift this up and you'll be able to sew right across your boundary. So there's my 1/4 inch eyeball. Put him on. Are we lined up on everybody? And checking maybe 1 or 2 more stitches. I can tell that I'm a little off there, so I'm going to use that knowledge to get me over just a little bit more. Okay, there we go. One of the things that I like about this design is I think it would be really cool to use ones that are the same height. Like if you use the 2-inch but skinnier, you can create an echo just on one side. And I think that would look really cool. It would make the design look a little bit more 3-dimensional. So, like if we just did this on one side and we connect it at the top, see how that creates that 3-dimensional look right there? And we can put a little fill there and pop this up. So the one that we are doing right now, it won't work because it's not tall enough. But if you use ones that were the same height, but look at what we just created. Isn't that cute? Love it. All right, there you go. So now you can see that this one's a little shorter, but we use the center lines to line that right up. And this is our little travel space right down here. And I think it looks great. If we wanted to, we could put this as the center line. We could have this as a border. And then what you would do is after you finish creating the design, you can just come back in with your straight edge and with your spacing gauge, and you could close all of this and close that ditch right there if you wanted to. But one thing that I recommend, if this is your border, you could, if you need a really big border, you could measure the width of this, and you could make the other ones either offset right here, which would create another gap right there. So you could have 2 of them that would be offset. So this would be able to make a really big border. So let's go ahead and we'll just measure from the base to the top real quick so you can see what the height would be. So this right here, this is 2 3/4 right here. So if we wanted to make it twice as big and even bigger, you can create a gap in the middle, and these could be offset. You could do this same design, but fill these odd spaces right here. And then you could have a much wider border that would have a little space in between the two, and they would look amazing like that. And of course, we could also mirror it on the other side just like we have this, we could mirror it on this side of the center line. And then you would have these little open diamonds right here. This would create a little diamond right here in the center. And you have this same overlap on this side. And if I did that, I would put straight lines maybe right here, or a 1/4 inch echo right here, and then straight lines, because this has a lot of activity. And then whatever we did out here, we don't want to take away from the drama of this part. So having some just basic straight lines out here would work really well. Okay, let's see what's next. Let's tie this off. So I'll just come over here and close it on this end. All right. So let's show you another design. I like this one because this has some really cool cross hatching, which I think is really fun. Let me show you a little bit of it. So we're using basically 2 different sizes on this one. Can you see that? So I did the base first, and the relationship on this is 1.5 inch base, and this one is a 3 inch base. Okay, but you're just putting it around it. So this is the extra space. You wouldn't think that that would be correct, but we're going to show you how to do this. And I love how it makes these spaces in here. It's awesome. Okay, so I think we'll start off with the 2, and then we'll do this part on the outside and show you how that all crosses over. So on this one, we want to start with the biggest one first, because that's the limiter. All right, let's grab our big one. I think I need them to be different colored. All right. So we're just going to do our big one, and then I'm going to show you how we're going to do the offset with this one. Oh, he went wonky on me. I'm going to come back, tuck that guy in there, make sure he's all the way in. I don't know, I really noticed that sometimes on this one, the foot seems like it's in there, but maybe it isn't. So I want you to really concentrate on making sure that you've got him all the way secured forward. And not just forward, but this part pushed up so that it's cupping the foot on both sides. Because otherwise I seem to get that little bit of a over looping stitch on the bottom there. So you can see this part's the easy part, right? We've done this a bunch of times now, right? So tucking him all the way in. All right, now we're only going to get kind of not even a half over here. So that's okay. Let me adjust my quilt sandwich. He's binding up on me a little bit. There we go. Just like you'd have to do if you were anywhere else. Okay, so what we need is we want this next one to be halfway. So let me show you. We're going to line it up. So this is the center line, and we want to move this so that this line, we might have to scoot down a little bit. Right there. Oh, let me measure it, make sure. I want to make sure that I'm telling you the right thing. So if this is 3, we want to hit it so it's in the half right there. So the start of our next one needs to be right there so that he'll cross over. Where's my chalk? All right, so we'll just put a little tick mark right there. And here we'll just mark him right in the center. That'll help us have a little visual right there so that we know if we're lined up right or not. I'm just going to scoot over so I can get him lined up the way we want to. So what I'm looking for is I want to stitch into the middle, and then that'll be the start for the next one. So right there. So now when I bring this one, I should be able to get my 1/4 inch right into the center. And I even have this reference line right there. I don't know if you can see, but this one right here, he should line up then right at the tip of that other one. And that's what will get us right in the middle. And once we get the first 1 or 2 seated properly, then we shouldn't have as much trouble lining up the rest. So if we do, we can just give a little tug, and then I got this one lined up really nicely right in the center. So you'll notice that when I start stitching, I tend to take just a few slow stitches, and what I'm looking for is I want to make sure that he's not doing something crazy and really stitching out of place. I want to try to stitch right over those stitches right there. So that's usually what I'm trying to do when I'm stitching really slow right there at the beginning, like this. I just want to make sure that the foot isn't giving me any kind of weird wonky stitch right there. All right, and then we'll come in. Get our threads out of the way, and then make sure we're lined up. So I've got this reference line here, and I've got this reference line here, and that should keep me right in the middle. Right there. And the last one. So this is basically, we did 2 rounds with this one. And I'll show you the overlap. And then if we wanted to add the smaller ones, we can. And we can either make the smaller ones to get the crosshatch. The smaller ones are going to fit right in the middle. And then they'd move over and in the middle. They can't fit each one. So they're going to be in the middle. And then this is the edge, and you'll travel. And the next one would be in that one. So this is what just gives you the cross, but your little smaller ones, they would be on every other one, not on every single one. So let's grab one of those. Okay, and now we have a center line, a pretty good one with that. So that'll help us also get lined up. So we'll need a little bit of stitching over because these are smaller. And then we'll see how we do. We need to come in just a little bit more to get lined up. Right there. So this alignment now, the ruler's telling us where we need to go. So we'll just use that. And that'll get us started. Isn't that crosshatch pretty? Love it. It's so gorgeous. This is probably my favorite of all of them. So again, we're going to let the ruler tell us where we need to be. We need to be centered on this right here. Okay, so we'll have to scoot back a little bit. I came just a little bit too far. But we'll stitch that bottom line and clean it up after anyway, so it won't matter. Okay. So looks like we're about a 1/4 inch away, so I can kind of use that visual to help me get aligned. So I'm in the center here, which hopefully should be lined up right on there. And let's make sure my foot's all the way up. There we go. All right, Let's stitch over. Free stitching, you can do it. Try it, it's easy. It's only easy if you practice it though, right? I've said that before. It's just like anything. If you don't do it, you're not going to get good at it. So go ahead and practice it whenever you can. Whenever you have a chance to overstitch, especially on something that doesn't matter, that you don't care about, you should absolutely do it, because then whether you're free motioning or working with rulers, you'll be able to travel much more easily and more confidently, which will make your stitching look a lot cleaner over time. So it's definitely worth practicing whenever you can. So I need just 1 or 2 more stitches. All right, so I'm lined up right there, and let's make sure we're nice and straight. And then I'm down at the bottom. Now I could put another smaller size, but I think you guys, oh, you guys, you're way out of my view. Darn it. Hopefully you could see some of what I was doing there. That last little bit just put you all the way out of the view. But doesn't that look awesome? Look at how pretty that is. I love it. I love it. So notice that right now we don't have the cross on this one. So now this would be your chance to go back again, and you would be crossing on the other one. So you would come across the bottom and put the dip in here and travel and put the dip in this one and travel and put the dip in this one. So this does take a few passes in order to create that cross hatching piece. It takes essentially 4 passes just to do this. But if you wanted to do the next one, you could make a little smaller one in here or a larger, skinnier one. And all of those chances would just change this just a little bit. So if I use the same one, it'll be very symmetrical right here in the middle. Like if we stitched over, we'd have to come to about right there. This is where we would start this one, and he would be the same height as this one. But we could choose a different size. We could choose a little squat one, or we could choose a skinnier one. So let me show you. So this one is quite a bit taller right here. So let's see if we could line that up. So you can see this would change the look. You know, he would start essentially right here at the base almost, and he would come up, but he would be a little bit taller than this one, and he would be skinnier. So you would have this pattern. You could create your own pattern. So these don't all have to be the same. You could vary that and just make things look how you want to look. They're pretty fabulous, pretty unique and interesting. So let's tack this off. And let's just review really quickly for any of our new friends. So when I first learned how to stitch with rulers, I was so happy that I was never going to have to use my walking foot again. So this is the 12-inch arc, which has an amazing straight edge. And when you're using your spacing gauge, so this line right here is our boundary of our design. And I can put my 1/4 inch, let's see, I think we need one more stitch right there at the top. There we go. And just like that, I'm stitching in my ditch. And stitching in the ditch with your ruler, you can correct things, like if your stitch is a little wonky. So notice how it's narrower here but wider there. So what I would do is I would stitch until I get to wherever I first adjusted. That was right at this point. And now I see that this is a little narrow right there. So I can adjust that, and I'll stitch down so that that part is closed right there. And then you're going to move your template down. Never stitch off the end right there. Always move it down. That way your design is clean and you're controlling things, and you're not going to fall off the edge of the ruler, which is very important. Perfect. So notice how we're able to line this up very precisely. So what you're looking for is this ruler cannot be canted and be a 1/4 inch. In order to be a true quarter, you're measuring flush with the ruler, and this very outside edge here is going to sit right where you want the needle to be, right in the center of where you want the needle to be. So you're not centering it with the outside edge of your spacing gauge, but the actual edge of that plastic right there. Okay, and then we'll just come up and we'll close this design and then we'll be done. And here we'll tack off a couple of stitches. Please move your fabric when you're tacking off. Don't let it just stay in the same spot because your knots will stick right on top of one another and make it really unsightly. So just go ahead and shift your fabric ever so slightly when you're doing that. And it looks great. I'll show you up close if you want to see. Get all these loose threads off of here. That looks good right there. I was happy with how that turned out. Okay, so let's see what we have next. We got another spot on here for a border. So let me show you. So this way we're going to use it a little bit differently. I might turn this around because you might be able to see better. This way most of the stitching is behind. So I think we need to rotate it so most of the stitching's in front so you can see. All right, I'm just going to pleat this edge on the inside, get this bulky stuff nice and smoothed out. Okay, so I have a center line right here, and this is 3 inches wide, and I use this because I think that it's kind of the widest border that you can make with this design. Let's see, where's my template? Oh, guys, I'm always putting one down and can't find it. I don't know what happens. They are clear and they're hiding from me. He's the star of the show. He shouldn't be hiding. He should be out in front. Okay, so let's go ahead. We'll get him all centered. So notice that we have a center line right there, and we've got the reference lines right here. And maybe we want to put, let's see, we might want to put a little, we'll go in a little bit because we don't want to have a big gap at the beginning. So let's put a little baby in there. So we'll get them all lined up. Okay. Now, I'll cross this way, come over, and we want to come up a little bit, so we'll come up. And you can use your spacing gauge to decide, or you can mark, you know, it's up to you. Let's see, where's my spacing gauge? I'll show you what I mean. So you can take your spacing gauge and you can just put him right there. And I can tell that's about 1 inch. So let's see if we did good. Yeah, so that's perfect. So he's touching the foot and he's touching this bottom line. So this is the measure that we're going to use as we do this design. Okay, so the foot now is in the boundary, and now I'm just going to stitch over to the other side. Okay, get right into the bottom. And now I'm going to stitch up 1 space from right there, from right where I am now, 1 inch. And let's see if I can, oh, I went a little far, didn't I? Oh, I know why, because that isn't the bottom of this guy. Oh, we'll play with it. We'll just go up a little further. You can create your own pattern, it's okay. So let's see, this right here is about, I think that's good. We'll just go with it. We'll create something new and fresh, right? So this would be a great way for you maybe to mark this, where you have a spacing here, like 1 inch or 1.5 inch as you go, and maybe center this top on it, and that way you could adjust the spacing. And in addition, one of the things that I think would be really cool, so we'll do half of it like this, and then we'll do half of it with a variation, which I think would look really good. So we're just going to do it visually right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this on, and I'm just going to say, oh, that looks good to me. So maybe this one's a little bit tall. Oh, okay, there we go. So this is what I'm looking at. It might be a little bit big, but I think it's okay. So these aren't going to be perfectly even because of my wonky adjust, but look how cool that looks. Doesn't that look awesome? So you, like I said, you could mark the spacing if you wanted to so that each of these had the exact same amount of spacing. And what you would do is you'd mark a line this way and then another line at whatever spacing you wanted. And you could line up this tip right here. When you move up, you could line this up on your reference line, and that would keep these the same distance. Or you can just do it like I did and do it visually. It still looks good, I think. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you the variation, which I think looks awesome. All right. So we'll do half of it with just that plain design, and we'll do this half with the variation. So we're just going to move up so that the foot is touching the edge of the stitching right there, like that. Okay, and then we'll line everybody up. So we've got the center line, so we should be even right here and right here. This is what we're looking for. Slightly bigger than a 1/4 inch because of the curvature right here, because now we're above this curve, so these don't match. But right here, these are about a 1/2 inch, which is going to sort of give you that 1/4 inch echo, but not perfectly, because it bows out. Okay, so you're going to get just a little bit of a different look because we're on the outside. But doesn't that look super cool? And then we would move up a certain amount of distance. So let's use this as a reference. We'll move up from there to there, well, maybe up to there. So you can even use the lines on here to choose your spacing right there. So that's how far we moved up. So now we'll make the next one. Okay, and then just like we said before, move up in your line until your foot is touching. So right here, my foot is touching, and then get everybody lined up again. And you can see it's not a perfect 1/2 inch, so it is going to bow out, but that is because of the shape. It can't follow exactly because this one bows out and comes back in. And then we'll do the same thing. Line up the needle here and sew up to there. So that's an easy, quick reference. We don't even have to do any marking or anything. And we'll just do one more just to show you that alignment. So just hook the foot in there, get all of your lines lined up. And then here you would scoot up until your foot touches. Right back there, you're looking for the foot to touch. And then line everybody up. And then you can just finish that out. You know, if we wanted to, we can just keep going. But I think this would be a really fun one where you could fill some spaces like that. That really changes the design by doing that different spacing. So I'm going to kind of come up so I can show you both of them at the same time. If we can get this to turn a little bit. There we go. So there you can see those are the two different ones. One with the even spacing where it's just, you know, of course it was eyeballed by me, but where the spacing is kind of big and just traveling like that. And then I really like this one. And you could even shorten this one. Like we did 1 foot spacing, but you don't have to come up that far. You could come up less if you wanted to make this even tighter. You could just put a 1/2 inch spacing between the tips, and that would make these a little tighter right here. So what I mean by that is if we put this on, let's get him out of the way. Let's tack off and we'll get this out of there so I can show you what I'm talking about. All right, so here, we got to cut this little guy, get him out of our way. Okay, there we go. So let's show you the alignment if we wanted to switch and make some adjustment on this one right here. We need to get him a little closer for you. Okay. So we use the foot spacing right here. We stitched up from there until the foot touched. But what we could do is we could line it up where this right here from the tip to the edge of the plastic is 1/4 inch. 1/2 inch, like this, right? And what that would do, you still have all the same alignment, but you'll see that this is going to be a tighter fit right here. So then you would get like maybe not quite you'd get less than 1/4, because that's not a half right there, but you would get 1/4 inch at the tip right there. And here you'd get a little bit less than that. This would be narrower right there. So those are just things that you can play with. You can use different ways to align. So here it was the foot, or we could use the spacing gauge here, and that's going to change what this looks like. This is quite a bit of openness, but if we wanted a tighter echo, if we just use this, we would get a lot tighter echo, because this would come up 1/4, and these lines would be closer together right here. So I don't know, should we do that? We'll do one of those. Let's just throw that in there just so you can see how much tighter it would be. So we got to get ourselves centered. All right. Yeah, it's a lot tighter. So he'll push up at the tip, and that would get you to the edge. So this is what you could have. This is another option. You can see that that's going to be a lot tighter, but then you wouldn't have necessarily that line right there. You'd still have a bigger gap, but you'd have a tighter little echo right there. So pretty cool. Lots of choices. You should play. Alrighty, so let's go ahead and tack this off, and I'll show you one other thing that you can do. So, hey honey, do we have any questions so far?
Just comments. Everybody likes it.
All right. If you have any questions, go ahead and send them. We got time for a little question moment if we wanted to.
So here's one. Pat asked, could you use these on points so that all the points are in the center of a circle?
So Pat, you're so smart. Look what we're doing. Can you see that? Okay, let's make sure our camera, it seems like it's a little wobbly today. I don't know why. Maybe we need to pop it in there better. There we go. So what I've got on the screen is I have just the 8-point crosshair, and I've probably made more lines than I need, but I want to show you that you can play with it. There's different ways to use it. So let's get maybe our 2-inch out. Let's see. We need 2 by 2. Oh, I don't know. Maybe we'll use this one. He's skinny, but he's long. So I can do different things. I could do it like this, and you would basically sew until your foot hits the crosshair lines, right? But this one isn't going to give you much in the way of, you know, crossover. It's going to just give you a little arc back into the center. So it looks very, very small. It doesn't really show. Let's see, I was trying to look for my sample with this guy, but I cannot find him. Oh, he's hiding, as always. So what I thought we would do is let's try and do it 2 different ways. I'm going to show you, we'll start at the center. And I think we need a shorter one. This 3 is too big for this space because it's going to go outside the box. So we'll put a little shorter one in there. Let's use this one. All right, so what you're looking for here is you want this center line right here. This is what's going to put you right in the middle here of this space. So what you would do is you're going to go one side And I recommend maybe you could go ahead and do both sides, and I'll show you why. We need the visual reference on both sides here in order to line everybody up, right? So now we can flip this, and we can use the same center line, and we've got the reference lines here. This is 1/4 inch, so we should be able to sew right back into that spot, connect up the design. Oh, perfect, we did good. So we connected right up, and now we can hook in here and we can line back up on the center line. We got a lot of threads there. And you know, you kind of want to check, make sure you've got your 1/4 inch and everything else, get all your lines lined up nice. You could even use your spacing gauge and take a few stitches right here slowly. Make sure you're on your line to get back to the center. Okay, so that's a kind of a cool shape, don't you think? It's pretty. One thing else that we could do is you could do all of the insides and then you could come back and do the outsides, but that I think would be kind of complicated if they don't touch. So you can decide. If we did this, we have 16 reference lines. So what I would probably do is skip one and then put this one on the next line, and then maybe put a different one on the alternating lines, or maybe use a spinifex on the alternating lines. And that would give you the opportunity to have a little diversity in your design. So we'll do the one side, and we'll come back, and then we'll do this side. That way we have both sides as a reference. And then you can line up again, and you've got this center line to line up and the edge of your template right there with your 1/4 inch space. Okay, and then I would line back up to the center and get myself back to the center. And this is just one way to use this. So here's our center line right here, and this center line right there. That'll help us get right back to where we need to. So first stitches, couple of them, nice and slow. Just make sure we're aligned properly. And then I love that shape. Doesn't that look awesome? And can you imagine if you needed a leaf? I think this would make a fantastic leaf, right? You can just put like a little free motion curvature in there to make some veining right here. I think it will look awesome. So we'll do one more. So we're skipping this line and we go to this line, and you can just hook them in there. You're using the line at the back here to center your line, because we don't have anything out here, so we need something to center on. Let me see if we're aligned. All right, here we go. So this side, and then we'll do the other side. Flip them around, and now we have this center line, and we have all these reference lines right here to get us lined up. There we go. All right, and then we'll get us back to the center. So this is just one way to play with these, but there are so many different ways. You can even flip the template over and use it the opposite way. And I've seen that work, and it looks kind of cute. You're not going to get as much a dip. It's going to be flatter if you use it the other way. So we're using it like this, right? So it's coming out. But right here, you can see that that's not going to give you very much on this crosshair. It's very shallow this way. So let's see if I can... I'll show you one other thing. Notice here that these crosshair lines, the foot is going to hit about right there. That's about 1/4 right there, right? So you're not going to get the full shape if you're using the crosshair, but you could always go crosshair to crosshair. You could sew out here and then flip it and sew out and flip it and sew it and use it like a spinifex. And then this will, you know, create some interesting designs. So let's see where we're at. So we have about 10 minutes, and let's see. Let's see if we can do one more thing. We'll try this the other way. I'll show you an opposite use of it. Let's go ahead and we'll tack this off. And we'll show you one other way that you can use it in a circle. All right, so what we'll do is we'll kind of use half of this. So, you know, essentially I'll fill one design on this side and we'll use this as a different way to do it. So on this one, we've got all of these reference lines from our crosshair. And what we could do is we could go out as far as the crosshair will allow us to go. And let me show you what I mean by that. We need our big one. So right here, I can put this out as far as it can touch both crosshairs, or I can choose different sizes. Some size might fit better, you know, depending on how big your space is. Like this one, I would have to push out really, really far out here so that he touches the spacing gauge and he's on the center line. If I use something skinnier, I might be able to get in quite a bit closer. So let's use our 2-inch and see how that works. I think this one's a good size. So what I'm doing is I'm centering this and I'm checking my space over here so that I can be on the crosshair mark. So I use the ruler to set my needle position. And ideally, we would be coming back to this design. So we've got this center line right here. And then we're going to sew to the next crosshair line. Okay. Now we can rotate here. We'll use that same center line. And we get to the next crosshair line right there. Now, if we are careful, this should essentially bring us all the way around crosshair line to crosshair line. There may be some slight fudging that is necessary, but that's always true, so I don't worry about that, and you shouldn't either. Okay, so here's my center line on the crosshair line, and I can fit right in there perfectly at the quarter. And we'll just go to the half, I think, because I think that's where we started. So I'm lined up. Oh, maybe that's it. I think we're kind of at the same spot as the other one, but doesn't that look pretty? And you could use different sizes, and you could do the same thing to put even smaller ones in here, and then you could use a big one, and you could just echo this, which would be really cool as well. So you can see that would be really, really fun. And because these are the points, one of the things we could do is we could take the ones with the same height and we can do our little cross hatching. I'll share that with you real quick. Oh, there you go. All right, and we'll show you this crosshatch fun thing. Here, you would have to do it after you finish the design, and you would put, you know, whatever template that you wanted, and you'd start at the point. And this will probably be our last one for today, just in terms of time. But again, you know, there's so many different designs. You can just keep making more. So let me flip this so you can see how I'm going to align everything. So right here, I can just tip it until this line touches, or I can choose, you know, whatever I want, but we'll use this one. And because this even looks longer, I can even put the bigger one because we have a lot of open space here. So I can go like that, and we'll just put that little curve in there. And I can do it on both sides if I wanted to. And if I wanted something even shorter then to go in the middle, I can just flip that and I could put something else in the middle, you know, like make it even smaller. Always wait until your template stops, your needle stops moving before you move your template. But that would be such a cool design, don't you think? That the challenge with this one is you would have to do the whole design on the outer edges, and then each of these you would do as a jump stitch. So for example, I would tack off right here, put the tacking stitches in, pick up my needle and my foot, and I would jump across right to there, get my needle centered. Now we're going to stitch this a bunch of times back to the center, so I wouldn't bother trying to tack it right away. I would just put this on, and then you can start doing the other side immediately. And you're going to come right back and do this side. And then you can put the other one on. And you can see those are so cute, don't you think? You could just do so many different things with it. So this template is pretty fabulous. You do have a lot of sizes that you can play with. And I know that there's not a lot of designs that are in the book, but we've shown you a couple of different borders, a couple of different ways to do spinning templates that would create more of a motif arrangement. And here, like if your corners weren't filled, you could do an intersecting one right here to fill in this area and a small one here. You can also echo this with a larger template to make this bigger if you wanted to. It would echo really easily. And then we've shown you how to use it edge to edge, and we've shown you two different ways that you can either leave the edge to edge wide open and do it as a continuous line, or you can put a fill in it, which is also a continuous fill, which would allow you to have more alignment for template, or just to have a more dense design in case the one that you started with was more open than you wanted. You could fill in with a continuous design that would be really easy to align. So I have just some designs that I stitched out as a practice piece, and I think I put those pictures already out on Sew Steady and also on my Facebook page and my group. So they're just out there for inspiration. There's no instruction with those, but those were all made with these Persian templates. And hopefully you were able to see that there's a lot of great alignment on those tools. Either for echoing or for moving up. You know, you've got so many great markings on here, your center portion right there, and then this is your needle alignment on the bottom. And remember that, you know, if your reference line didn't allow for this, I could always just cut it off. You know, I could make another reference line above this and make it, you know, 1 3/4 or whatever I wanted. You can always adapt this if your design doesn't fit perfectly to 3 inches. Maybe you need 2 1/2. You could put another line and just cut this right there to make whatever height that you needed. It's harder to adjust this dimension, but the height is very easy to adjust. So hopefully that'll give you some ideas for going forward. I did have some people that sent me some notes that said they were excited because they have those templates, but they haven't used them. So I challenge you guys. I want to see what you're doing. Send me a picture so I can see. I'm nosy. So we are just about finished. I want to say thank you so much. And just in the interest of transparency, I did put a link in the post header, and that has a Sew Steady page reference for my Facebook Lives, because Sew Steady has opened up something where they're going to kind of catalog the things that I've talked about, and that does allow me to participate in the sale a little bit. So, you know, they're not paying me to do the lives, which is fine. I'm happy to be doing what I'm doing, but if you did like this template and you were interested in purchasing it, I would ask that you use my affiliate link that is in this post. So please share with your friends if you think that they would like these designs, and hope to see you at our next event. I will let you know that the week of October the 12th, I will be traveling, so I will not be having a Facebook Live on that day. So make sure that you mark your calendar. If this is something that you really like to participate in, know that you have a day off on the 12th of October, so you can do something else. Quilt something amazing. Okay, you guys, thank you so much for your time, and I hope you have a lovely day and happy quilting. I will see you around. Thank you.